Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me here. So IBM launched a product called IBM Sovereign Core, May of this year. So May is when we do our big Think conference, which is when we announce our product launches. And what Sovereign Core does is essentially fits right into this topic of how do we ensure a true sovereign AI, right? Right from sovereign data to sovereign technology to sovereign operations to sovereign AI. And ours is a software that essentially does 4 elements across data sovereignty, technology sovereignty, operational sovereignty, and AI sovereignty. And that is the product that we launched in early May.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we spent a lot of time today on compliance and architecture. If we zoom out, now that nations are standing up its sovereign AI at scale and verifying how it's governed, what does holding the proof yourself unlock economically, strategically, militarily, that trusting an operator never could? And I'd love to hear from both of you, but Najwa, why don't you start?
Yeah, I think, and to what we mentioned earlier, especially with the fast adoption of agentic AI, there is always this hesitance of what if the agent does something suspicious or malicious to my data? What if data gets exfiltrated? What if the model gets poisoned, etc.? So with all these cryptographic proofs and cryptographic guarantees, I think we're unlocking a big part of the adoption that the organizations, especially critical infrastructure and the defense sector, are still shy to take that step to adopt agentic AI. And I'll give you an example from the experience we're having in the UAE. I think Dr. Shawki mentioned before about this geospatial platform that we have launched recently that has been deployed with defense. Of course, in the deployment, that there has been a lot of thought into the security of the platform, but it has been deployed into an air-gapped environment. It has been deployed on-premise. But in addition to that, if you deploy it outside the premises of this defense clients and you provide those cryptographic guarantees, etc., you will be able to scale much faster, and you would be able to ensure adoptions but by more units and departments of that defense client. There is a very big unlocking that will happen and can happen in the healthcare sector, because this is one of the sectors that's still shy because of HIPAA, because of regulations, because of standards, data privacy laws, and the sensitive nature of client or patient records that comes with it. There is also the financial sector that will be unlocked, and in general, critical infrastructure will be unlocked. If we look into the UAE, for example, the energy sector is one of the biggest adopters to AI agent and AI agentic platform, but also with confidential AI technologies being there, with security and cryptographic guarantees, with identity management of those agents, I suspect that this can increase at a much more exponential rate.
Thank you, Najwa. And Priya, you're talking to a lot of entities that are looking to adopt sovereign. What's your experience with this as well? Like, what is it unlocking for them? What are they interested in?
I want to start where she left off on adoption. So around 95% of enterprises around the world, they're in some form of AI journey. But it's really only 20-25% are able to truly unlock the value and the productivity and the outcome that they want out of AI applications. And if you look at the delta, there are a few reasons, and they're the same patterns over and over again. But one of the key patterns is around what she was referring to, around regulations, right? It could be regulations, local, regional, country-specific, whatever it is. There are so many different regulations. And there is a level of trust, but verify, that everybody is looking for, right? And they want to make sure that it is done in a highly, and we were talking about this earlier, like people confuse sometimes compliance versus governance versus sovereign, but the needs of today is changing rapidly. And there is a huge expectation of, do I have the control? Do I have the independence? Do I know where my models are running? Do I know where the inference is happening? And to what you were referring to, you're building a lot of agents, right? Like, you do not want to make a costly business decision that fundamentally affects your business operations, right? Everybody is expecting that resilience to stay, irrespective of what you're modernizing it with. And how do we do that in a real sovereign manner, which means you have the control, you have the independence, you know exactly where the models are running, you know where the inference is happening, and do all of that in automated, compliant, ongoing manner. You used a term, by now I loved it, but I should have registered it, verifiable trust?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Verifiable trust, and that's really it, right? How do we make sure that it is an actual verifiable trust? Is the conversation we're seeing over and over again. Just based on the country or the region or the regulation, the framework might differ, the aspects that they're looking underneath may differ a little bit, but at the basis of all of it, everybody wants to make sure that they're compliant, they're highly governed, they know, that the things are in an automated manner, and it's truly, truly verifiable, and the evidence is right for them to see.
So the sovereign AI spans everything from running a domestic data center to owning the entire software stack from top to bottom, or maybe the hardware stack. What are we seeing as a minimum that has to be true in order for an entity to consider this as sovereign? Priya, I mean, you've been working on this product at IBM for Sovereign Core for, as you shared with me, years now, and I know you've got a ton of market research across the globe. What did you hear?
So it's a combination of different things. So we started, and like with data sovereignty, we actually started right there. Data and rest, data and use, data and motion. How do we truly make, and that was the initial set of demand that we were hearing, right? Data sovereignty, and that's where we were focusing. From there, we started looking at, okay, operational sovereignty. Do I have the keys to my kingdom? Where are my keys? Where are my secrets? Where's the identity? Where is that happening? From the operational sovereignty, it went to technology sovereignty. How open is my stack? How hybrid it is? Can I deploy it no matter whether it's on edge, it's on-prem, it's on cloud, multi-cloud, that whole technology sovereignty. And then more recently, I would say in the last 18 to 24 months, it's been a lot around AI sovereignty, and especially the last 12 months, it's even more increased, where it's about, hey, again, do I have the model flexibility? Can I bring my own model? Can I bring my own inferencing? Is it pluggable solution? Can I, the stack that you give, can I plug it with something else? And people are looking across the entire stack, meaning from infrastructure to the software, to the application, to the data, is all of that in a manner that it is truly sovereign. That's where the conversations are all shifting. And the other aspect I would say is, it depends a lot. For a while, people thought sovereign was a Europe word, okay? And then they thought, okay, maybe it was in Middle East word, then it is an Asia word. It's really everywhere. You could be in US, the word sovereign fits perfectly well, just as much as it fits anywhere. I would say it took a bit of realization. It just is control and independence. And who does not want control and independence and really understand what they're running, where they're running, how they're running? It is, at the end of the day, their business, their applications, their operations. But that, I would say, took a bit of education and working together with clients, with partners, and coming to that understanding that it's for everybody across all regions and all industries. And to her example, right, healthcare might have some different types of nuances, like HIPAA versus, the financial sector might have different versus telco. Telco has its own regulations. It's just catering towards those needs and making sure we're able to meet those needs.
Okay, thank you. And Najwa, what's your strategy in the UAE for sovereignty? I mean, you're at the forefront, as we all know, in thinking about this. And you're working collaboratively with not just the governmental agencies, but also, let's say G42 and other neoclouds that are exporting the concept of sovereign to other nations.
Yeah.
Tell us about your strategy and how you think about this.
There are multiple layers to this strategy. So as you mentioned, we work closely with G42, which is the main government cloud provider, and their partnership with Azure in order to host the government cloud. And in this government cloud, obviously, you have all the services that are needed by the Department of Government Enablement, by all the Abu Dhabi entities, etc. And this is where G42 would provide the infrastructure layer that is hosted in the country, and then there are the model layer, there is the software layer on top, there is the agentic layer on top, etc. From a model perspective, as some of you might be familiar, at TII we have invested into our own large language model, or the UAE sovereign large language model, which is the Falcon large language model, multimodal models, perception models, etc. That's it was a good
It was a good fireworks.
For good fireworks, yes. So we have invested in foundational models, and now we are investing into the development of these various agentic platforms. And maybe this was a question that was asked for me before. Do you only use your own models? No, we look into what are the best models that are out there that would perform for a specific task. We contextualize them in certain aspects. We host them on-premise when, of course, for the sovereignty aspect. There is also the other side of the coin where we as an institute work very closely with the cybersecurity regulator, and you heard from Dr. Kuwaiti. The same way we have pushed with Dr. Kuwaiti the post-quantum migration in the UAE, now we are working into putting a foundation for confidential AI into the UAE. How are we going to deploy confidential AI? How are we going to leverage the confidential GPUs that are coming in the country with the deployment of the data centers with G42 and the government cloud services, all the cryptographic guarantees that will be there. And another thing that we are doing is we are working into the governance of the models. So which models will be deemed enough to be secure, to have the proper guardrails in order to be used in governmental services. So in a nutshell, this is how the sovereignty and the confidentiality of AI services is being thought of. That's in addition to the technology that we are developing, from federated learning to MPC to fully homomorphic encryption to our partnership with you for to collaborate on the opaque platform and the rest.
So the keynote I shared with everybody my thoughts on the significance and importance of sovereignty, and specifically what I talked about was how sovereignty, meaning the freedom to choose the best model for the job, knowing that you can set the rules and verify that the rules are enforced, unlocks tremendous value globally, because it ensures that we have a thriving ecosystem in which we have the ability for industries and government agencies and social systems to get the benefit of AI without losing the ownership of their data. The alternative path that we've seen, and I shared in the keynote, one in which we've seen repeated through every single tech cycle, which is to say, we end up with one or two large companies that control. Like in this world, it's even more obvious how that would happen is if we aren't enabling data sovereignty, we'll end up with the data pooling into one or two intelligence minds that then become the cognitive layer for the globe, creating not customers, but dependents that are reliant upon that. And it's a very brittle, fragile system. So I just want to get your two opinions on, that's my opinion, is like, hey, this is the most important technology that anybody can be working on that ensures a strong, thriving ecosystem from AI. The alternative seems pretty dystopian to me, but I'd love to hear both of your opinions. And Priya, perhaps you first. Like, if we don't nail this, like if you're a nation that isn't able to retain sovereignty versus one that did, what does that look like in 5 years? What are your thoughts?
It's going to sound like I'm repeating you, or maybe rephrasing you, but it's pretty much what you said. Right? Number one, freedom, right? And you could say control, you could say independence, you could say freedom, but that is actually more important than we all right now realize or respect it, that actually having the freedom of choice, having that independence to be able to run your business the way you choose towards the outcomes you want. Like that's like, it should be non-negotiable for everybody, and people who make those strategic decisions are going to stand much longer than others, I would say. Two, like I said, it's going to sound like I'm repeating you. You mentioned about the whole data aspect. Why is that so important? What is one thing that's going to differentiate is that domain knowledge, the domain data, what you hold, like the keys to the kingdom is really the data of your enterprise, your nation, your region, whatever that is the keys to the kingdom. And having that and having a view around it and making sure that is sovereign, 5 years from now, if I get an opportunity, if they call me again here, we would be able to see examples of those who made the right data sovereignty decisions versus those who did not. And then the third thing, there's a lot of AI tools. My daughter builds so many things. I mean, I'm not questioning her intelligence. She's super smart. My point is, she's not even interested in tech, but I'm amazed at how much of tech and AI and stuff that she just grasps. Like, there's so many tools. There is so much available, right? Non-technology people can build stuff. That's not the thing. But doing it in a truly governed manner, in a sovereign manner, that is where the challenge is going to be for the future. How do you make sure that people who trust on you, right? You're a bank, right? Your customers completely trust that they know what you're doing with their data, how you're using the data, right? And I work for IBM. One thing that we've earned is trust, right? And at no point, irrespective of the AI transformation we do, that will be a non-negotiable thing that we will not compromise on trust of our clients, which means everything that we do with AI, whether we do it in our procurement, we do it in our sales, we do it in our marketing, we do it in our customer support, it will be done in a highly compliant, highly governed, highly sovereign manner, no matter. We operate across 150 countries. Based on that country's policies, rules, regulation, we will follow to the right T, but using technology, not just using humans and controls and contracts, but really using technology. We will follow on the decisions that we're making today is what is going to stand the test of time, 5, 10, 15 years to show the differentiation. So I would say domain and data, freedom, control, independence, and truly the trust of your clients and how you are doing that AI sovereignty in a manner that they'll continue to put the trust. At the end of the day, all companies are here for their clients.
Thank you. So Najwa, what are the two paths over the next 5 years? Those that retain sovereignty, those that do not. I mean, is my rendering of this an accurate portrayal, or do you have a different view?
I think maybe I fully agree with whatever Priya said, and just to complement it, right? There is a big merit in open source standards and what the likes of the Linux Foundation is doing, with the Agentic AI Foundation is doing, to keep those open source standards for the whole community to be able to use those standards, to use the tools that are being developed and then being put in the open source, and the ability to contextualize, to host on-premise, and to maintain the privacy of the data. There's a very big merit in there, and as long as you have new models that are being deployed in the open source, new tools, new libraries, new MLOps platforms that are being put in the open source, I think this allows you to adopt such technology and then to incorporate them with your sovereign AI and the sovereign security stack. As we have been discussing since early in the day, there are new standards that are needed for the identity and agentic platforms, for security, for confidentiality, for developing cryptographic standards and cryptographic guarantees that have to also be standardized and being adopted, that enable this sovereignty as well. So this is from one aspect. The other aspect is technologies are needed. So whatever you're working on confidential AI technologies, whatever we're working on confidential AI technologies, what the new software that IBM has released to contextualize things, to enable the sovereignty of operations, sovereignty of compliance, and sovereignty of governance also is quite important. And then the final one is the availability of compute and hosting data centers in countries, and not to be localized to a specific geography is very important.
All right, well, ladies, thank you so much. I know that we've got limited time because we're already over, so I'm going to thank you so much for joining us on the panel
Thank you, Aaron.
and sharing your insights and experience. Thank you.
Thank you.